Welcome to another webinar with Outsourcing Fit. Your presenters today, Wayne and John, Senior Consultants with Outsourcing Fit. And I'm Wayne, and here's John.
And I'm here too.
So today we're talking about outsourcing in Asia and just some mechanics for you. If you need to reach out to us, reach out to Diane at outsourcingfit.com. Or John has his WhatsApp there. You can contact him. You're also welcome to use the chat in whatever platform you're watching. But just a word of warning, we are streaming in multiple platforms on Zoom and Google and Teams and Messenger and so on. So we may miss some of the chats. And of course, some of you may be watching a recording of this, in which case you can do whatever you like with the chat, but it obviously won't affect us very much. We want to talk a little bit about what Outsourcing Fit is first to introduce it. Thank you, Simon Sinek, from famous for his TED talk for introducing the golden circle. And Simon says that people don't buy what or how you make your product. People buy why you make your product. So following his thinking, we are passionate at Outsourcing Fit about the outsourcing industry and the significance of outsourcing in the future of industry worldwide. And we think that what's most needed in the outsourcing industry is consumer confidence, client confidence. So our why is to build outsourcing confidence. How we do that is with education and verification. And what we do is, first of all, we are independent. We're not a BPO, and we do brokerage between buyers and sellers of outsourcing. We do education for both providers and seekers of outsourcing. We do consultancy for both parties, and we independently verify stuff that we're asked to verify by either the BPO or the client. Now, who are we? Why should you listen to us? Well, in terms of BPO experience, since 2005, we've been working with call centers large and small. We've worked with BPOs that are managed, full service, established startups, or captive and seat leasing. We've worked across the whole range of the industry. In 2016, we launched the Outsourcing Fit free directory. It's a free directory of over 1,400 BPOs. And in 2024, we began the commercialization of the brokerage. We have a lot of cross-cultural experience. Between John and I, there's only two of us, but we live in Hong Kong, Thailand, the Philippines, and Taiwan. We are digital nomads. We do move about a bit. Originally, John was from Canada and I am an Australian. G'day, mate. But we've both lived in Asia for a decade or so now. We have a global client base and a global supplier base. And we're not a provider. We're not a BPO. We are a broker. And often we talk about being free, but what we mean is we're free for clients and we are funded by fees and commissions from providers. So we are a commercial enterprise. Now, outsourcing is hard. It is a relatively new industry, the way it's structured now. Large-scale call center outsourcing has been around for 50-odd years, and 50-odd years ago in the 80s and 90s, when you wanted to be an outsourcing company, you had to be very big. You had to be prepared to employ a couple of thousand agents. You had to put in your own technology, your own connectivity, and it was not a game for the faint-hearted or for the small and medium business. That's all changed courtesy of the cloud, and with that has come many, many more suppliers, many, many more business process outsourcing companies, and also many, many more clients. That small and medium enterprise outsourcing is a pretty new industry, 15 years or so. It is tech-driven. It is complicated in the compliance requirements, and it is high risk and high reward. The return on investment is probably in the order of 70% of savings on labour costs, and the number of outsourcing clients who achieve what they expected to is probably also in the order of 70%. There are a significant number who try outsourcing and don't make it work for various reasons. So given the complications of outsourcing, we thought there was a need for someone to address that confidence, and that's what we try and do. Now, as I mentioned, Outsourcing Fit is a brokerage, it's a middleman, it's a buyer's agent, it's a reseller, a consultant, a market educator. We do not employ any outsourced agents. We do not have any outsourcing offices. We do not compete with our outsourcing partners. We do, in fact, have our staff outsourced with various BPOs. And our product, if that's the right word, is free to buyers. It's free to clients. So we do matching between buyers and sellers to get the perfect fit for their outsourcing. We do how-to education like this webinar today. We give lots of advice. We do tours, we tell stories, and we do independent verification. There are two senior consultants in Asia, John and Wayne. There are other senior consultants in other countries who work predominantly in the sales side of the business, but John and myself are the senior consultants in Asia. A little bit of a look at an agenda for what we're going to talk about in this webinar for outsourcing in Asia. We're going to go through the following. Why Asia? How do I select the right outsourcing partner? What services can be outsourced? What are the costs involved? How do I ensure quality and performance? What are the data security measures that are important? How does compliance and certification work? And my favorite adage, trust but verify. Now, given that, that we've advertised this for an hour and we do want to get everyone out of here in under an hour, to deal with those topics, we're going to have to deal with these at a fairly high level. But if you've got questions, if you'd like to know more about particular things, pop a question in your chat channel or drop an email to Diane. We'll either record a separate answer for it, or we may well have one in our library that we can just send to you by email. So, and that's also true. If you've got questions that are not on the agenda, drop them in as well, and we'll either deal with them in a future webinar, or we'll send you an answer to it straight away. Or we can just have a call. You know, let's face it, we're not dealing with millions of customers every day here, so we're a very personalised service. Let's start with why Asia. Now, as I mentioned, John and I are prejudiced because we both live in Asia, but outsourcing happens in many countries around the world. Wherever there is a significant difference in wages between the client country and the outsourced production country, there is the opportunity for outsourcing with return on investment just through wage arbitrage. So it happens in South America, in Africa, in Eastern Europe. So there are many countries where you could outsource to. John, why would someone pick Asia?
Mostly for Asia is the wage benefit. Wages are one of the most saving part of any business. And the second part is the English. For instance, in the Philippines, their predominant language is English. Because of their dialects, that they had 37 different versions of it, they used the English to communicate from one area to the other, and it became the predominant language. And
of course, it was an American occupied territory for
U.S. bases,
80 odd years or something or other, and it had a lot of American bases here for their military. John, where else in Asia is outsourcing big?
The we find a lot of outsourcing somewhat in Thailand and actually still in Taiwan too, and Cambodia. There again, they're actually using English and some other languages, but because of the university training, especially like in Thailand, it's a high degree of education. And outsourcing today is not just a call center; it's your back office. There's everything from architects, draftsmen, nurses, doctors, all working in behind the scenes, which can be outsourced for insurance companies and doctors' offices and engineering firms. So it's quite a saving of normally around 70%, and that really goes a long ways to your bottom line, because if you don't do it, you can be sure one of your competitors is doing it.
Yes, that's very true. And of course, India is huge and famed for the IT sector. Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam is up and coming. Cambodia, as you mentioned. So wherever there is that wage arbitrage, we see outsourcing occurring, and as you say, a lot of that now is knowledge processed outsourcing rather than the conventional call center or BPO style. The terminology is confusing, and I admit that. But yes, lots of outsourcing providers. So for me, Asia has advantages in time zones, depending on where you are in the world. It has the wage arbitrage that we mentioned, and the Philippines is known as the English center of Asia. So let's move on. Now, this is a question we deal with a lot, and it's really the core of what Outsourcing Fit does. We help people find the best fit outsourcing. But if you're thinking about outsourcing for a business, what are some of the things, John, that you think are really important to get right? How do people select the right outsourcing partner?
What we do there, if we have a partner that's coming to us or a client, both the client and the partners have filled in a questionnaire. Usually it's about 100 options or items to select. You don't have to do it yourself. We can go through it with you, and you're sort of selecting off the things that are either a deal breaker or a must be, and that way then we can match the BPO to your needs as a client, and it's a good marriage. We're really a matchmaker.
Yeah, and there are some that for clients they're absolute deal breakers. Like some BPOs only offer work from home these days post COVID. Some clients insist that their staff are in the office, work from office. So does the BPO provide work from office, work from home, or some hybrid? Things like bandwidth, which is one of my favorite. You're connected to the internet, and if the internet fails, you fail. And so some clients would require that the BPO have redundant commercial grade internet access. Other people are less concerned. And there's a whole range of those things. What's the liability? Who's responsible for the work output of the staff? Some clients want to select their own staff, work with them every day, direct their work, and be responsible for the work output. Other clients just want to hand over a procedure, give the document to the BPO, tell them that they require 1,000 of those things. Maybe it's an invoice, or maybe it's a call being answered, or 1,000 of those, whatever it is, to be done every day, and the BPO gives a price per unit of work, and the customer just puts it all on automatic and walks away from it. Different horses, different courses, different customers, different BPOs. Next, we have the services that can be outsourced. Now, we talked a little bit before about it's not all call centers these days. What's your view about what can and can't be outsourced successfully, John?
What can be outsourced is just about everything that is done in any business's office that requires documentation or processing. Nothing physical, but like I say, it's from billing, accounting, reception, It comes from design sides, and also we have some clients that even are doing it like data annotation, or uh, things along even medical science are outsourcing a lot of I guess we call repetitive products, things that are done and have to be put into the systems for visualization. But anything that is normal in a business office in any vertical can be outsourced today because it's not a call center anymore.
Yeah, if your office staff in your home country are doing it on a computer or a telephone, and it's legal for someone to do it in a different country, it can probably be outsourced. Some of the more remarkable ones that I've heard of are research assistants in universities and people running drug trials, not the scientists who are running the drug trial, but the administrators who are running the drug trial. I've been to visit BPOs where doctors are calling patients in America who have been discharged from hospital to try and prevent readmissions. So the range of services through all of the verticals, accounting and real estate are very common, but also into medical services, into all of the customer service fields, into engineering and draftsmanship, quantity surveying. So it really is much more of a knowledge-based industry than it used to be 10 or 15 years ago. And there's been lots of discussion. We won't talk about AI tonight, but there's been lots of discussion about how AI will just put an end to the outsourcing industry. And I absolutely disagree with that. I think AI will reduce the number of low-level jobs that are happening, but increase the number of high-level jobs that are happening. Because someone who's got, an agent here who's got some command of ChatGPT or a similar AI product, it's like giving them 5 years experience in a Western market. So if you've got doubts about what can be outsourced, do get in touch and talk to us. I'm sure it's more than most people suspect. Let's move on. Now, let's talk about the costs that are involved. And remember, when you compare the costs of the staff that you've got in your office or even work from home in your home country and what you're being charged by a BPO, remember that the BPO fee includes not just their wages and on costs, but also their office space, their air conditioning, their electricity, their bandwidth, their computer. So it's a whole package price as a rule. Now, John, I know that a few years ago, some of the people who were promoting outsourcing were talking about being able to get Filipino staff for $5 an hour. Do you think that's practical?
It isn't normally. The people vision that $5, and what we see from that is a low level person agent, and also the BPO is a very low level. They don't provide any management. They'll just put somebody in the spot, and you really have no control of who you're picking. What happens there with that is usually a failure. Other than just answering the phone. If it's just answering a phone and taking a message, that will work. But when you're looking at having some thinking process or somebody that has an educational background to discuss or help with the sales or customer service part, you have to pay a higher rate because that's what it costs to acquire that person. But also the BPO will have a campaign manager looking after that and team leaders, and all of that part is included and comes out of the rate that you're paying hourly for the person. So if you don't have that, there's a good chance of failure. And what I see with those people usually are a 3 or 6 month client aiming for the $5 mark. It fails, and he said, "See, I told you, it's no good." But he's wrong.
So if we're looking at someone, let's pick an industry. Let's pick someone whose job it is to track down lost luggage complaints for an airline. So an agent who's going to do that sort of work, on average, in US dollars, what are we looking at? $10, $12 an hour?
Yes, $9.50 to $10 an hour. It's somebody that has either had 1 or 2 years experience in the logistics and or in the airline industry, and we'll provide that. And that's a fairly good rate. I mean, you may say, well, I'm only paying, 18 an hour or 15 an hour in my country. But really, you're not. You're paying more than that. You've got the overhead, you've got your severance and your portion of the government. You've got your air conditioning, your rental space. So really, $9 or $10 an hour is quite a saving because really you're not paying 15 or 18, you're paying like 22. So it's a phenomenal saving.
And there is no standard pricing model for BPOs anywhere in the world. So some of them charge a straight rate per hour. Sometimes you've got additional on costs for computer rentals or government statutory charges. So when it comes to picking a BPO, it's important that you understand exactly how the quote has been given and what the component costs are, and make sure there are no hidden little extras in there that you're not expecting. The basis for all of that pricing will be pretty much the same country by country, because everyone's dealing from the same labour pool, everyone's working under the same legislation, but the way the BPOs present it can be quite confusing sometimes. So if you're confused about it, have a chat to us. We're happy to talk that through. In fact, we should probably do a full video just on pricing models because it is complicated. Let's move on. If you're a small or medium enterprise or even a big enterprise and you're outsourcing 2 people or 200 people who are going to work for you in the Philippines, how do you go about ensuring quality and performance? What are your hints and tips for that, John?
The performance part is usually done by laying out the system that is going to have your productivity from the client side, and that would be like the KPIs. What are your goals? What are you looking for? The results per week, and the team manager and those will do a weekly report back to the client, and look after what the results are. If some of them don't work out, and there are few agents that are poorly performance-wise working, the BPO will actually change those for you. There's not a problem with severance or moving somebody out because you think that the productivity's down in a couple of the agents. It's just a matter of asking.
And my background has been, I guess, 50-50, very small enterprise, and the other 50% very big. One of the organisations I worked for had 80,000 staff, and the others have had 4 or 5 staff. And in some countries, Australia, for instance, which has only a population of about 22 million, a company with 100 staff would be considered to be towards the big end. It would certainly be considered medium. I know in the US, they would still think of that as small, but a lot of companies in Australia might have 4 or 5 staff, and they're going to outsource 2 or 3 of those positions. Often they start with, their accounting people and their customer service people. The real estate industry in Australia has been outsourcing lots and lots of property managers. But when you talk to those small businesses about documented procedures, their eyes just glaze over and they kind of pass out and start to foam at the mouth a little bit. Now, those people, they have to get their quality and performance a different way, because they can't just hand it all over to the BPO because they don't have it documented. So in those cases, they want a BPO where they're actually going to work with the staff every day in the Philippines, like they work with their staff who were in their hometown during COVID and just working from home. One was 20 milliseconds away and one's 200 milliseconds away. So it's going to be, daily meetings every morning. Good morning, how are you going? What's happening? What are you going to do today? And an end of day report for what did you get done, and time tracking and task tracking. So not everyone's going to have highly documented procedures and KPIs and KRAs and sound like they came out of an MBA. A lot of the micro businesses are going to be much happier if they know the staff individually and they're talking to them on a daily basis.
Exactly. Well, those people in that aspect, those are the staff. That's your staff. They're not the BPO staff. You've selected them. And that's one of the neat things about a lot of the BPOs that we work with. They just don't pick somebody for you either. If you wanted 5 staff, they might give you 12 or 15 resumes and CVs to look through, and you'll interview those on Skype or on Zoom and pick the ones that you want. You get to pick the employee as if they're in your location, in your office. And that way there you bond with them. And like I say, they're your employees. You talk with them daily, hourly, you're watching what they're doing, and you're communicating as any other employer would.
Yeah, I know some of the BPOs actually run a big format TV on the wall with a webcam on top of it, and the matching one in your office, wherever you are in the world, and you can actually see your staff sitting there working on the TV screen all day. And if you want to talk to them, you just talk to the TV and they hear it at their end. It's also important, something you just said there, John, about whose staff they are. From an employment point of view, they are absolutely employed by the BPO, but they are working for the client. So in terms of industrial relations or workplace health and safety or any of those compliance issues, they are an employee of the BPO. But in terms of being able to direct them and tell them what to do, they are working for the client. I think that it doesn't happen instantly. It takes some time to train your remote staff, but I think it does happen. And I've talked to a lot of clients who say they get as good or better production out of their BPO staff than they do get out of their in-country staff. So it's interesting. And there's lots of arguments about this and lots of discussion about it. Do you get better productivity out of work from home or work from office? Do you get better productivity out of some countries than other countries? We could argue about that a lot, but I certainly think that the production you get out of your BPO staff is certainly enough that the return on investment equation makes sense. Anyway, let's move on. Now, something that's getting more important by the day. What are the data security measures? John, do you think the BPOs are able to offer adequate data security?
Yes, probably more than some local businesses have on their own. All of the BPOs here normally have policies: no phones, no chips, no flash drives are allowed to be entered. They're scanned. Everything's monitored. The internet systems that they have are secured again also. And so a lot of that safety that you may not even have in your own business, the BPO has. So you're actually in a better position. Yeah,
I agree with you. And a lot of them are certified for data security with things like ISO 27001 or other standards for data security. And courtesy of the cloud, you've got to remember that in a lot of cases, the server that has all the client's data on it is actually in the cloud and managed by the client. So if you think about something simple like Xero, the accounting system, all the BPO is doing is providing the security to get the worker connected to their computer and the internet. But then they're logging into Xero using the credentials and the methods and the security of the client end of it. And that's where the two-factor authentication and individual passwords and so on and so forth come into effect. And so in reality, the security, as you say, is often better with a BPO than it is with someone who's just trying to manage things themselves in their own small business.
Yes.
And I think we've got a question on privacy coming up as well. If not, I'll come back and talk about privacy because that's another thing that's come along. What else have we got? Compliance and certification. Now, we just touched on this before with data security. There are a bunch of both voluntary and mandatory certifications that BPOs can get or must get that are independently audited, and some are statutory requirements. For instance, in most of Asia, there are workplace health and safety or occupational safety and health systems that are every bit as sophisticated as they are in California or Australia. And those systems are implemented and inspected by the government. And one of the things you can do if you're thinking, if you're selecting a BPO is you can ask to see that certification from the government. Likewise, talking about the Philippines has very strong labour laws called DOLE, the Department of Labour and Employment, and it's very employee leaning. But again, all of the sorts of provisions you would expect to see in a first world country, with hours of work and maternity leave and gender equity and so on and so forth. And it's really important that your BPO can demonstrate that they're meeting all of that statutory requirement. But then there's other issues. The ISO certifications, 9001, 27001, the Better Business Bureau certifications, if you're a US company, are very common here. Payment card industry data security standard. If you're a business that deals with credit cards, then you've got an obligation to become certified by the payment card industry to their data security standard. And if you're not, you're at risk of having your merchant accounts closed if you have a data breach. Now, while there is no universal external certification for that, many of the BPOs do choose to bring in an external auditor to certify that they are compliant with that. And likewise, anti-modern slavery is now very common in the first world. Privacy, pretty much worldwide now, depending on, if you're European, it's GDPR. If you're in the US, it's either a state standard or maybe the Californian standard. But privacy has become very regulated. And of course, privacy only applies to individuals. It doesn't apply to companies. That's confidentiality. And that's another requirement that you need to be confident that your BPO partner can maintain that. So compliance and certification is, I can't think of any other way of saying it. It's complicated for the BPO industry. And if you're thinking about outsourcing and you need help with that, you're welcome to have a chat to us. We can talk you through some of that stuff. And as I said at the outset, in matching you up with the perfect fit BPO, we don't charge you for that. We make our money from the commissions that are paid for us by the BPOs as a success fee. Let's move on. Trust but verify. Now, I'm not sure which US president introduced this, but I really do think it's important. When you are getting into outsourcing, there's going to be a whole lot of things that you're not familiar with, from how to work with your agents, how their culture works, because both they and you are going to go through some cultural difficulty in learning to work with one another. And of course, when you're looking to select a BPO, you've got to know what questions to ask, and you've got to then figure out, when they say they're ISO certified 9001 and 27001, well, you should trust that, but it wouldn't hurt to verify it as well. Is there a way you can verify that? Well, in fact, there is. You can check that out with the world authorities based on their certification numbers. When they say they've got redundant generators, how do you verify that? Well, you can ask for photos of the generators. You can look at the maintenance logs. You can look at the diesel fuel checking. Sometimes I know of BPOs who say they have generators, but what they really mean is when we lose power, we rent a generator. And of course, if you have a big disaster, everyone's trying to rent the same generators at the same time. So trust but verify. And if you don't know how to do that, talk to us. We do verification, independent verification, on all manner of things BPO related. Now, question and answer time. I've got a couple of questions here, John. Deal with how do people select good staff? Do you have any hints and tips for how you go about selecting good staff in a BPO?
Okay, so if you're going to hire so many agents, say 5 agents, the BPO will provide you the resume of those agents. And in that resume is their job history. Now, that resume is always checked by the BPO to verify that what they have in the resume is true. And what you're looking for is a agent or somebody that's worked for a number of years, 1 or 2 years straight at a BPO, and not be considered a hopper, somebody that will change jobs often. And traditionally, 90% or 95% of the Filipinos, when they have a job with the BPO, they hang on to it because they're very hard to get. Not like you say in North America, you've got somebody hired, you finish training them after 2 weeks, and they're gone because they keep looking for an extra dollar. And so it's very hard to maintain people on a minimum wage in the US, for instance. But here you're looking for somebody that has stability. And all of the agents that they normally pass on to you for review have been verified and checked already for that part of it. So then the next step is listening to them on the interview and seeing if they fit what you like to hear.
Yeah, that's very good advice, isn't it? That you can actually listen to them reading a script or answering questions and make an assessment of their English, live.
Exactly. And how they respond. You can ask them a question, what would you do if this happened or that happened, and see how they can think and handle that. That is how you're, verifying that you're going to have a good hire.
Good advice. John, work from home and work from office. Which one do you recommend?
I usually recommend work from the office. I know we had to work from home during the pandemic and things like that, but the work from office has a better productivity and a better feel of a group. So if you're going to have a team, 5 or 10 people working with you, remember they're working for you, and so you have your daily rallies or weekly rallies with them, and they become knit into your company. Working from home can remove them from that environment a little bit, and it may not be the best fit for your company, but they're both will work. It just depends on the needs.
And John, last question. One of our listeners is US based and does a lot of work with Spanish speaking Americans. How do they outsource if they're looking for bilingual agents, Spanish and English?
So some in the Philippines originally, and going back 400 years, a lot of their language is built up of Spanish words when the Spanish ruled the Philippines. So there are certain pockets in the Philippines still that have fluent bilingual Spanish speaking people. And so we have some BPOs that are in that area. And that's usually what is selected. So it's, again, you're going to interview the person, see if it fits the bill, and work in that aspect of it.
I know a lot of US clients go to South America to get Spanish speaking agents outsourced, but I'm told that bilingual English, Spanish speakers out of South America are more expensive than bilingual Spanish, English speakers out of the Philippines.
Oh, for sure. The Spanish in the Philippines is going to cost you $1.50 an hour or more than just English, basically. But again, their English is going to be great. Their Spanish is going to be great. So you may, if you're $10, maybe you're going to pay 11 or 11.50. But if you're using somebody that is, say, in Colombia for their Spanish or Bogota, you're going to be in the $15, $17 hour range. If you were to go use Mexico, it's going to be cheaper in between there. But the educational level is not as good as the Philippines.
It is a complicated buying decision. And for those of you who are new to outsourcing and just contemplating it, I do wish you well on your journey, but the most expensive way to learn is to learn from your own mistakes. So if you'd like to learn from our mistakes, make contact and we're happy to share with you our experience. That's all we have for today. I think we've got a contact slide here. You can contact John on his WhatsApp. You can contact Diane on Outsourcing Fit and she'll pass your messages on to John and I, and we're happy to come back to you. Thank you for your time. As I said at the outset, if you joined us late, we have been broadcasting this on several channels. So if we haven't got your chat, we've been on Zoom and Google and Teams and Messenger. I think if we haven't got your chat, we will in the next 24 hours get hold of that and get an answer out to you. Or if you're listening to a recording of this and you want to get hold of us, use the contact details on here, and we're happy to answer your questions either via Messenger, in a call, or record a video for you. So thank you for your time and attention. We look forward to you joining us again for our next webinar from Outsourcing Fit. My name's Wayne. My colleague is also a senior consultant, John. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate your company.
Take care, everybody.